Welcome everyone to the 8th round of the Chess Olympiad 2024. We have the man of the previous round, Gukesh, entering in there. What a game he played against Wei to give India that 1 point which helped them beat China. And now Gukesh gets ready for another big encounter. This time he will face the Iranian GM Parham Maghsoodloo. And as he gets ready, someone brings him a chessboard. A chess fan who wants his autograph, Gukesh signs it with a smile. Very rare for Gukesh to be distracted before the game. He shakes hands and now gets into his zone. This is the phase where you see Gukesh completely switching himself off from the outside world and getting ready for the battle. Parham Maghsoodloo comes in, a shake of hands. Parham and Gukesh are two of the most uncompromising players in the world of chess, and they both have played some amazing battles against each other. Both of them fill in the score sheets. The last battle that I remember between them was at the Prague Masters, where Gukesh was completely lost, and then on move 40th he started moving around. He could see the winning idea for Parham, but then Parham couldn't find it and the game ended in a draw. This time it's a lot of things at stake. India is in the lead but only by 1 point, so Iran would be looking to get those points back. And now d4, the game opens up. Gukesh responds with d5, something that he doesn't do often. He loves to play knight f6 on move number 1. Parham starts to think a bit. Should he play c4? Yes, he does. No London system this time. c4 played, and Gukesh, being very classical, goes e6. And now Parham brings his knight out to c3. And maybe Gukesh, knight f6 seems like the most natural move, but instead he goes c5. He plays the Tarash. Very interesting choice here by Gukesh. Pawn takes pawn, and he takes back ed5. Let's see the setup that Parham goes for now. He brings his other knight to f3. The Tarash defense, popularized by the great Siegbert Tarash, used to say that the man who's afraid to play with an isolated pawn should quit chess. And there you see it. He's ready to take an isolated pawn. But Akiba Rubinstein developed this system with g3, bg2 and would put pressure here from the bishop. And it was something that black faced a lot of problems with. Bishop comes out to g2. And now the modern day treatment of this line is to take the pawn and get your bishop out to c5. This is how chess openings are connected through the ages. Tarash develops it, and this idea with bishop c5 is known as the Dubov's Tarash. Dubov, one of the finest players in the world at the present moment. Bishop goes back to b6. Now you can't really win this pawn, because after bishop e6 take queen f6, black gets excellent compensation. So he goes castles, and Gukesh pushes his pawn to d4. Now you have to go to a4 with your knight, attacking the bishop here. That is the natural move. He plays it. Knight comes to a4 and attacking the bishop. Gukesh simply castles. The point being that if you take here, I'm going to take back with my a pawn, opening up the rook file. Parham plays rook e1, just defending the pawn on e2 later on, so that rook e8 does not attack the pawn. h6 played by Gukesh, stopping bishop g5 now. And there's always this threat in the air to take on b6, take on c6 and take on d4. but that generally does not lead to any advantage for white, and that's the reason why Parham is keeping maximum pressure on the board here with his bishop f4 move. Gukesh starts to think a bit here and goes, after 15 minutes, bishop e6, an important move. He wants to trade the g2 bishop with bishop d5. That would give him a good position there. But Parham brings his knight to c5. He's attacking the pawn on b7, and Gukesh must play bishop d5 now, which is a fine move because knight b7 is hanging. He plays bishop d5. Now knight b7 is a game of Kramnik, queen e7, and the position is interesting after knight b6, a b6 and e4. But let's see what Parham does. Well, he plays knight b6, and I think he's mixed up the move order completely, because now after a b6, knight b7, you don't need to play queen e7. You can actually go queen d7. Earlier that was not possible if you had your knight here, because the knight would simply jump back. So he plays knight takes b7, and now queen to d7 is the idea. And Gukesh just completely focused there, tries to calculate everything, and after 4 minutes plays queen d7. The knight on b7 is trapped, because, and he plays e4. Imagine you went knight d6, I would take on g2 and play g5 and win the piece. So he goes e4 now. Gukesh does an en passant there, and it's important now to take back with the f pawn to keep the balance in the position, because after take, maybe queen b7, there is bishop to d5. He plays here rook e3. This is a big mistake here by Parham, because Gukesh now has knight b4. He finds it. Fantastic move. The knight is hanging now on b7. Queen takes b7 is the idea. He goes knight d6, and now just take on g2. You can see Gukesh tremendously focused there, takes the bishop on g2. King takes g2, and now you can pin here with rook a d8. This is not an easy move to play, but it is the right one, and Gukesh finds it. Beautiful move, pinning the knight here, gets up from the board. He is better here out of the opening. Rook b3 played by Parham, attacking the knight, but we can go knight to d5, attacking the bishop and then winning the knight here. Not at all an easy moment now for Parham. If Gukesh finds knight d5, he plays it. He's so accurate and he's in such good form. Knight d5, and now the knight cannot even move from here, because check and you lose material. Parham finds bishop e5, the only move to stay in the game. And now Gukesh plays another beautiful move, hitting the bishop. If you try to play f4, then knight g4 with e3 being soft, and also rook d6 threatened. He plays queen d4, and now once again, just like the Wei game, Gukesh can have two knights for a rook. Insane if such a position arose. But instead of taking on d6, Gukesh, he becomes more ambitious. He wants to go for the e5 bishop. He tells his opponent that now knight e5 is hanging. Wow, what a move here. And actually bishop g7 is possible. I'm not so sure, because d6 is hanging. What is his plan? But he first goes rook d1, and the point being, if you take on e5, I'll take on d5 with in equal position. So Gukesh says, I'm going back to e7, now attacking here. If you come back bishop f4, I have g5, and I'll nonetheless keep on putting pressure on this pinned piece. But Parham is not a player to mess with. He takes on g7 and Gukesh instantly plays knight f5. If you take here, you lose the queen. It's possible to take on f5 and play that position, but he goes queen f4, which is also an interesting move. Now you cannot take here. This would be a bad move because f8 is hanging. So Gukesh should chop off this. Yes, he takes it. By the way, just so that you know, queen g4 wasn't hanging because of knight e3 check and you lose the queen. So queen f4, he takes the bishop. And now an important move here. Rook takes b6. And with the dust being settled, we now come to a position where Gukesh has a piece for 3 pawns. This is a very interesting position with chances for both the sides. It can go either way. Gukesh pushes his pawn to f5 now. It's a good move here. Pawn to f5. And now Parham should start pushing his queenside pawns, but he first kicks the knight out from g4. Knight f6 is possible. Knight e5 is possible. He plays his knight to e5. Let's see how the game continues. And Parham, oh, he's touching the knight, and insane blunder. He blunders completely here. What a big mistake. Parham thinks he's attacking the queen, but actually Gukesh can snatch the knight now. You can see him there calculating. This is a moment that is a big mistake. Gukesh quickly checks what is the result on the other board. And I think it's Arjun who's won and Prag who's drawn. He takes on c4. Rook takes rook has been taken. Rook takes rook by Gukesh. And now Parham wins back the piece. Has his position improved? But actually he's missed something very, very important, which is that the rook can jump to d1 and threaten a mate with the queen. Look at Gukesh there. He can't believe what his opponent has just done. Because after all, Parham Maghsoodloo is one of the best players in the world. How can he blunder this way? You can see Gukesh there trying to zone in, being very sure whether his opponent has any trap up his sleeve. If he pushes his rook to d1, is there a check that comes in? No, the king has a loof. And look at Gukesh there. He's like, what? What's happening? I've never seen Gukesh emote like this in the game. He's always so calm. Gukesh is absolutely stunned by Parham's decision. He goes rook d1. And Parham now comes in, takes his chair. Also, he can't believe what's going on here, because now queen f1 is a massive threat. Rook b8 is met with king h7. There's really no move left. Queen f1, queen h1, rook coming in. It's a big attack. He goes rook b3. But now queen f1 check. It's game over, guys. It's game over. He plays a check. King f3. And now another check here. Okay, rook d2 also wins completely. It's also a winning move. But queen h1 check does it in style. If you go king e3 or king e2, I have check and I pick up your queen at the very least. And so king f4 is the only option available. Just like that. Just like that. Parham Maghsoodloo's king has been smoked out and is getting completely crushed here. King f4, and now many ways to win. Queen g2 with the idea of queen f2. Knight h5 check is somewhere in the air. Rook d5, fantastic move here. And if the queen moves away, knight h5 is game over. And so here there's nothing much left now. What a finish here. If the queen moves away, queen e4 would be a mate. Gukesh gets up He knows that the game is over. He's calculated it all. Parham Maghsoodloo is left alone sitting there trying to just figure out how did he land from an equal position to a loss in just a matter of few moves. He stops the clock, shakes hands, shakes his head. India scores a win here. Gukesh with the win on the top board. 3.5 is the score with which India beats Iran. And Parham really fought well. He found the best resources, but in the end, that blunder of knight c4 was just a huge one, and Gukesh wasn't going to miss that one. The players now analyze a bit. That's always the most wonderful thing about Parham Maghsoodloo. He loves chess so much that he keeps analyzing and discussing even after a loss or a win. It does not matter. And now I'll leave you with some of the footages. Maybe you cannot hear the players, but you can see them analyzing from the venue.